Yo, what is up everybody? Popo here bringing you guys a new video, and today we're going to talk about whether or not Pokemon is pay to win. Let's go. Welcome everybody, and today we're going to talk about whether or not Pokemon is pay to win. I know people have done videos on this in the past, and they kind of took a perspective of, hey, let's look at how much it would cost to make this one team and do all this kind of stuff. I'm not really going to do that. We're going to look at teams that did well in Portland, and we're going to kind of see what you would need to get that, and if it's really reasonable for Pokemon to expect everybody to have this. And with the release of the DLC, there's a huge limiting factor. If you are a more casual type player, but yet you want to still do well on ladder, there's this little bit of annoyance, I would say, and some people just don't have it like that, so they can't go out and buy both DLCs and stuff. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I looked through every single team that was actually at Portland Regionals, and not a single one of them had a team that was just base game. The first base, Regulation A style, Regulation B, Regulation C style team, everything had something from the DLC or from Pokemon Home, which means you need additional games and you need additional, avenues to get these Pokemon, which, in my opinion, for accessibility is a huge issue. I am not a big fan of that. I wish everything could be done in the game. And before anybody says, well, that's how they sell in the DLCs, I understand. I completely understand with that. But they are still far off from what that should look like. If we look back to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they did a really good job. Without having extra content, you were still able to catch all of the legendary Pokemon. You were even able to grind them for specific IVs and natures and stuff that you wanted to. So they did a really good job, and that was a $40 game. Put into perspective, the DLCs combined is $40, I believe. It might even be 50, but I think it's 40. And that gets you both DLC, so you get Ogerpon, plus you get all the returning legendaries that you can catch. But that's not even all of them that are available, so that makes it a little frustrating. Because if you want to use, let's say, Regigigas, I know it's not great. Neither is Regirock or Regice, but Registeel's okay. But to get those, you actually need Sword and Shield. And not only do you need Sword and Shield, you need the DLCs from Sword and Shield. And if you don't have those, then you have to go back all the way to those older games to just get them. So it's kind of inaccessible in that sense too. So just looking at the first 4 teams we can see here, Chuppa's actually comes the closest to being just a base game team, with Ogerpon being the only Pokemon not allowed from the first regulations up until Pokemon Home opened up. So that's not that bad, but that does mean that you need to spend that $40 to get that Ogerpon in order to even make this team, and that is not super great. And looking at the moves, they also don't have any moves that would really be impacted by the DLCs, so that would be the only thing that you would need to make this team, is to get Ogerpon. If you can get Ogerpon, one of your friends lets you get it or whatever, but you can only catch one Ogerpon per save file, so that really limits what you can do. And if you want to trade your Ogerpon, then you're going to be out in Ogerpon. Of course, there's other ways to do this. You could make a second account on your same Switch. It worked in Sword and Shield. I have not done it in with Scarlet and Violet, so I don't know if it works the same. I would assume so, but just take that as a warning. But if we look at the other teams around here, right? So 3 of the Pokemon on Alex's team are fine, but then you have the Ogerpon. Once again, you need that DLC. You have the Entei. You can bring Entei over from older games, but once again, that means you have to have older games. That's $60 if you want Sword and Shield, because it's still $60 now. But the most toxic one is this Raging Bolt. So if your favorite color is purple and you ended up buying Violet, then you got into VGC, and you just don't have the money to buy Scarlet, good luck getting a Raging Bolt. Yeah, there's people on GTS who are trading their Gouging Fires or Raging Bolts for, you know, specific ones on the other side, but you don't know what you're getting. Those could be hacked Pokemon, so you have to be extremely, extremely careful when you do those trades. So to get Raging Bolts, you essentially have to buy a $60 game and a $40 DLC, because the DLCs aren't splashable, so you couldn't make a second account on Violet and that DLC also be there because they're specific to the actual game itself. So you have to buy both. So that's 80 in DLCs, 120 in video games. That's $200, so that way you can make Alex Underhill's team. And now if you're taking VGC super seriously, then I would advise everybody to get both games and potentially get both DLCs, just so that this stuff doesn't happen. But I understand completely that people cannot afford to buy both. And that is where, once again, the issue comes in, right? The issue comes in right at that point. They allowed everybody to get Virizion, they allowed everybody to get Walking Wake, but they have not allowed everybody to get the other 4. And now, most of them aren't relevant, but Raging Bolt is so relevant that if you bought Violet, you're just at a disadvantage at a Pokemon tournament, making that Pokemon tournament pay to win. If you have a friend and you got lucky and your friend, he's a casual and he plays and he bought Scarlet or they bought Scarlet, then, you know, you might have lucked out, but not everybody has that either. And once again, there's a rampant genning issue going on. People genning Pokemon, then trading them for real Pokemon is a huge issue as well. So you have to be really, really careful about getting into that. Now, Anton's team here. So, you know, we got 2 Pokemon there from the base game. I would consider all the original Paradox Mons accessible because they're really easy to get. You can go on, you know, Twitter or a Discord and just be like, hey, can anybody give me a Flutter Mane? I'll give you, you know, ability patch or whatever it might be. People will give you those. So they're super accessible because they can catch a million of them. It doesn't really matter. But all the other Pokemon here require additional content. And most specifically is going to be that Regidrago, which is going to cost you $100 to get Regidrago, because you have to buy the DLC, which is $40 for Sword and Shield. You have to buy Sword and Shield. Pokemon doesn't put games on sale. Nintendo in general doesn't put games on sale. So therefore, Regidrago is $100 Pokemon. So now you're in for, you know, $100 if you want the Regidrago. That $100 will also get you, you know, the Tornadus, but then you need the Ogerpon, which is another $100 Pokemon. So right here, just for these 2 Pokemon, you're in for $200. If you have the DLC, you can get, you know, Incineroar too. So, you know, that's a $200 plus team. And now that's kind of crazy, right? That's kind of crazy. And then Colin's team here, we have 2 Pokemon that you need the newest DLC for, and that's going to be that Raging Bolt and Entei, though. Once again, you can bring the Entei. Even if you don't have the DLCs, you can bring the Entei over from older games if you played in older games. But that's inaccessible to newer players, so that's an issue too. If you play Pokemon Go, that's another way to get Entei over, but once again, still inaccessible. But yeah, 3. So this is a $100 team as well, because, you know, you only have the 2. So this is the most valuable team in the whole tournament. Off the top is going to be Anton's $200 team, and that's kind of the cap of where it's going to end up being. I don't know if you can get Regidrago in Pokemon Go. I haven't kept up with Pokemon Go to be able to tell you that, but I know you can't get Ogerpon there. You can get Tornadus there. So I guess maybe if you can get Regidrago there, then that will save you a little bit. But still, that's really, really, really tough. And then we got Ursaluna. So everybody was hoping that with the DLC, they would give us a way to evolve Stantler and Ursaluna, or Stantler and Ursaring into Weirdeer and Ursaluna, and they didn't. So that means you have to have a Pokemon Arceus just to get one Pokemon. So that's a $60 game. And then you need the DLC just to get the Kubfu, right, for this team too, though now you can catch it in the DLC. So you only need the DLC from the game now. All the rest of these Pokemon are available, though Expanding Force is a DLC only move. So You also need the DLC just for that one move, making this, you know, a $160 team for Brandon Davis here. This is pretty crazy that you need to spend this just for one move. Like, if this was any other Pokemon, let's say this was Chien-Pao for some reason, or Chi-Yu, you would still need to spend $100 just for the one move, potentially $200 to get the Urshifu if you brought it over from your old game. So, because you can only catch one Cubfu in this game, meaning you can have to decide which one of the two you're gonna go for. And that becomes an issue too, because if you end up making your Urshifu dark, and then you make a new team, and you don't have Urshifu water, tough luck. Tough luck. We don't know what to tell you. So that becomes an issue as well. So, yeah, and here we just have Urshifu water, so this is a pretty another close one on Joe's team. If you have the DLC, you can get both Urshifu water and Ogerpon. That's going to be in the $100 tier, essentially. Still, like, once again, if you're going to take VGC serious, get both games, get both DLCs if you can afford it. Of course, it's super expensive. It's $200. That's crazy amount of money to expect people to pay. And that's not even counting, you know, the $70 it is to enter this tournament. That's not even counting the travel expenses, all that stuff to just go to these tournaments. It's really, really crazy. And I think Pokemon is, though the tournaments have become bigger, I think that's a lot to do with just the people playing are getting older, so they have more money to spend and they can go and travel and stuff like this. But I think if they made it more accessible for at least getting the Pokemon, I think it would be even bigger. And there's a lot of people who I see all the time, like, I'm just getting to VGC, it feels overwhelming, I can't get a Raging Bolt, I can't get an Urshifu, like, how am I supposed to compete? I brought this team because I only have the base game, I can't afford to buy the DLC, and I just keep getting destroyed because everybody has Tornadus Urshifu. And that's not healthy for any game ever. That's like if you played, let's say, League of Legends and the best character was behind a $100 paywall, and if they use that character, you always lose. Your team always loses. You know, a fighting game where the fighter that's OP is behind a $100, you know, wall, and that one always wins, and you go online with your character that you spent so much time with, but it just can't beat this other Pokemon because it is just so strong. And that's kind of what's going on right now, because we have Urshifu, we have Tornadus, we have Raging Bolt. These are all Pokemon you would say, okay, well, Urshifu gets countered by Raging Bolt, but the problem is you need that same DLC to be able to get the Raging Bolt as you do for the Tornadus Urshifu. So it doesn't compare. It's not the same thing. You can't do either. And it's even more expensive to get your Raging Bolt if you started with Violet. It becomes almost impossible to get a 100% legit one unless your friend like is like, okay, yeah, I'll swap you for your Iron Crown. You know, unless you have that, it's really risky to try to get one, because you can just spend all this money and all this time and then just get disqualified from the tournament because you have hacked Pokemon that you didn't even know you had. And that is just not fair. You know, it's just not right. And Pokemon should be doing a better job at not only making the game more accessible, but their hack checks online and not being able to trade Pokemon that would get flagged by that hack check that they have at the game. Because if those Pokemon couldn't get traded, there would never be an issue. It would always be shut down right at that second. And then people wouldn't be getting disqualified for having hacked Pokemon that they didn't know because they got it from somebody. Or they got it on GTS, which GTS should have that same checking software, and it just doesn't. So, my conclusion to this, Pokemon is pay to win. It's very unfortunate, and I hope going forward, they make even more, more progress towards accessibility for everybody, because they've done a good job in this game with, you know, being able to do IVs, EVs, you know, getting all of that stuff. The TMs was a little bit of a step backwards, and I wasn't a huge fan of the way they've done TMs. But everything else, even egg moves, like egg moves is incredible. Getting the items, like bottle caps, everything being able to be gotten by money is all fantastic. It's all fantastic. But they're still behind on getting 0 IVs is impossible, especially when you got legendary, then you're sitting there grinding. I don't mind grinding a legendary myself, but if they just introduce the bottle cap everybody's been asking for, that puts something down to 0, or you can pick the IV that you want, that would be amazing. But the biggest thing is Pokemon availability. They need a way for people to be able to get these Pokemon without having to pay exorbitant amounts of prices, especially when the power creep is real and they keep making these Pokemon stronger and stronger. As we can see with the #1 team here, with the Raging Bolt and the Ogerpon. 2 of the strongest Pokemon that they've released in a long time, since Calyrex, which is another Pokemon on another day and another discussion that we'll talk about. But yeah, they need to do a better job. And yeah, that's it for me. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys thumbs it up. Let me know what you guys think down below as well. Do you think Pokemon is pay to win? If you don't, tell me why. I'm really interested to hear counterpoints to this. But yeah, I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of the day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.